Howdy folks, John here. Today we're diving into a crucial but often overlooked DIY job on your riding mower, and that is changing out the fluid in the K46 or T40 hydrostatic transmission. While I'll be showing the procedure on this John Deere D120, it's pretty much the same thing for any residential riding mower that uses a K46 or T40 transmission. Unfortunately, many of these riding mower manufacturers claim these residential IHTs are non-serviceable and have lifetime fluid. Now, while this may be adequate for light usage residential machines or for people who don't keep their riding mowers that long, it's certainly not realistic for those of us who want to keep our mowers running smoothly for years. Even Tuff Torq themselves are ambiguous regarding K46 oil maintenance intervals, stating both not requiring oil service to recommending changing the fluid in the K46 after the first 50 hours and then every 200 hours thereafter in heavy usage applications. Your guess is as good as mine where the transition between heavy and light residential is. You know, I figured with our fairly flat 1 acre of lawn to mow, this was fairly light usage, but this T40 transmission started to whine after 5 years and only 150 hours. Upon inspection, the factory fill residential IHT oil was very dark and it smelt burnt. And after replacing it with a better quality synthetic oil, this thing has been running great, and that's been for the past 7 years now. As you can see, the old girl now has 372 hours on the clock, so I've gone past the second 200-hour oil change interval recommended by Tuff Torq, because it's a service that I don't exactly enjoy doing. However, I enjoy the costly prospect of bricking the transmission even less. If that's your attitude as well, and you want to know how to change the oil in your K46 or T40 IHT transmission, I'll be showing how to remove it. I'll be covering both the easy and more in-depth oil change procedures, and we'll cover a few other little tips along the way. Let's get started by first removing the mower deck. I've got a separate video on that. I will link to it below in the description. You don't necessarily have to remove the deck to do this, it just makes it easier. Okay, so we've got the deck out, and now we're going to lift the back of the mower up any which way you want. I'm using a floor jack, and I'm just going to support the riding mower with two jack stands on the two frame rails. You may or may not want to take your rear wheels off. I'm going to. Just going to make it easier filming, and it'll make the transaxle a little bit lighter for lifting it off. But you can certainly leave the wheels on. Now, before we can unbolt the integrated hydrostatic transmission, there's 4 things we have to disconnect from the mower going to it. First one here is the brake. That's the brake arm there. We're on the left side of the mower here, by the way. Okay, second item I'm going to disconnect. This is the left side, this is the right side. We've got a 2-wire connector up here. This is the disengagement arm to put the transmission into neutral. And there's just a little clip on here. We're going to pull off, hopefully. There we go. That just lifts off that arm. Okay, so we're on the right side of the transmission now, but we've got one last thing to disconnect, and that's the directional control arm. There's a big push rod hooked up to this arm, and this what gives us our forward and backwards. It's a bugger to get out though with the transmission in it, and I find it's easier to actually drop the transmission a bit to get at it. So first thing we've got to do is take this side bracket off, and then we can take the 4 bolts that are holding the hydrostatic transmission housing to the frame. So we've got 4 bolts, 2 on each side. These are 13 millimeter or 1/2 inch would probably work. I've got the other side out already. Oh, if you were wondering what size that bracket bolt was, or nut, Actually, no, it was a bolt. It was a 10 millimeter. Okay. The other thing I should mention, which you can probably see, is I've got the jack here just taking the weight of the unit. Oh, there is another 10 millimeter bolt for a bracket on this side as well, which you've got to get out. And just be careful here. Wouldn't hurt to have an assistant in case this thing comes falling off, but doesn't look like it. Okay, just holding this as I drop it. There we go. Home stretch. So here's that directional control arm and push rod. Don't know if you can see the little spring washer on the back side here. But you just got to pry that off. And last thing is the belt. So we've got this belt keeper pin here. It's 15 millimeter. Just get this out. And obviously this is a good time to inspect the transmission drive belt to see if it might need replacing or not. There we go. And now hopefully we can just slide her back. Cleaned up nice, almost looks like a new unit. There's some rust pitting where the wheel is. I'm just going to clean that up. If I had to guess, this thing weighs probably about 11 kilos, 25 pounds, somewhere in there. So here's the drain port. It's easiest if you take the fan off. There's just a snap ring on the top of the input shaft here. And then our pulley. There's a little wobble spring washer on top of the pulley. So just make sure you keep the orientation correct. There's an E-clip down here, which we're not going to worry about. I'm not taking that shaft out. Okay, so this little drain cap is just press fit in. Get a really flat, narrow screwdriver or something just to knock in there and slowly work your way around to pry this little bugger off. There we go. Yeah, so inside here we've got a disc magnet. It's in the vertical. Looks pretty clean. Obviously, if it was full of iron or metal filings, that would probably be a sign that something bad is going on. Just take a look at this oil. And it's got about 220 hours on it. Yeah, it looks pretty clean still. So to drain it out, get your drain receptacle of choice. Now, if you had the wheels, let me just zoom out here. If you had the wheels still on, you could just rotate it. That's why keeping the wheels on might be a little bit easier. Ah! That drained out pretty quick in about 5 minutes. Not much more was coming out. Inspect the drain cap or drain plug, whatever you want to call this thing. Make sure the rubber's in decent shape. There's no cracks or anything in it. This looks fine, so it can be reused. Let's give this the old sniffy test. Yeah, doesn't really smell burnt. I think 200 hours is definitely a good recommendation. So if all you were doing was the easy fluid change, it would be as simple now as filling this up to the recommended level, which is about 20-25 millimeters, 3/4 of an inch from the top surface here. If you want to see that process, I'll put a time index here that you can just jump ahead in the video. However, we're doing the more complicated fluid change where I'm actually going to take the sump off, clean out the filter, clean those magnets, and inspect all inside there. Well, there's 16 bolts to get out of the sump. They're all 12 millimeter. Okay, so all 14 around the perimeter are the same length. These two ones at the very bottom or closer to the middle are longer. The sump is held on with RTV silicone, so you have to break that seal. There's little tabs all the way around where you can get a pry bar in, but of course, with my luck, may break the tabs. Oh no, there we go. It's not too bad. These IHT transmissions are pretty cool. I'm going to link to a training video by Tuff Torq on the K46 here. It's not that long, about 10-15 minutes, but it really dives into how these things work. There's two halves to these integrated hydrostatic transmissions. There's the hydrostatic chamber, that's this section here, and then there's the gear chamber. And these are actually separated. If you look at the sump and this, you actually have a sealant around one side and the other side. Even though they share the same oil, they are separate systems. So here is the sump filter. Very fine filter mesh. Just look on there, make sure there's no big hunks of anything stuck in there. I'm going to clean this though out. There's magnets in here. There's one for the differential side or the gear case side. Again, you would just want to look for any big shards of metal or anything. Just that little black fuzz though is fine. This is really quite clean, so I don't think we've got any problems there. There's two more magnets up on the sump here. Seems last time to get them out, to clean them, I had to take this bolt out and take this whole cage off to get at them. The center case assembly, this is usually what fails on these units when they get worn out, if you're not changing your oil often enough or you're really working the unit hard. You can buy actual service kits from Tuff Torq. I'll have a link below in the description to their website. Or you can actually send them out. You just take the whole center case assembly out and send it off to be rebuilt. There's a fellow here in Canada who does it through eBay. I'll fire a link as well for that. All the links will be below in the description to everything, oil, everything. And you can just take yours out, send it to them. You know, a brand new T40 or K46 is over $1,000 Canadian. So, you know, getting it rebuilt is a cost-effective way to do this. But we didn't have any slipping problems, and of course the oil looked good. Don't see any real issues here. This is the brake disc here, and there's two little shoes on either side of it. And then you just want to look at there's the wear surface on the bottom half. You can see the curve there. It looks fine. Very little wear at all. And then the little shoe on the other side, same thing, very little wear, so no problems there. Look at the disc. The disc looks pretty much brand new. Just keep mindful of orientation when you're doing everything, so you put it back together in the right orientation. And of course, we're going to have to clean up all the silicone all the way around here so we get a good seal when we put the sump back on. One other useful check at this stage is turn a drive shaft and watch the other one. You can see there's our differential case there, and it's turning the opposite direction, but that doesn't matter. What you want to look for is if that other end is wobbling up and down or back and forth at all as you turn one end. This one's fine, but obviously that would mean that the shaft is bent. Oh, and I should also mention that you can modify these sumps so you can actually drain them in the machine. There's two little holes here. Well, they're not holes, they're dimples. They're casting dimples. And on the back side, you can see there's two little flats. You drill them out, tap them. I think it's an M8. And there's two M8 drain plugs then that you put in so you can drain both halves while it's in the machine. If you want to do that, mod yours, go for it. Okay, just a couple of tips here. Obviously, cleanliness is of utmost importance, especially on the hydrostatic side. Getting all the gasket off, you want to work away so none of the RTV falls into anything. Granted, it would be filtered, but best not to. On the sump itself, there's these little channels all the way around. That's for the RTV to lock into. So you kind of want to get those cleaned out. If there's old RTV, the new stuff will just be sitting on top of it. And as far as the RTV goes, I'm using Permatex Ultra Gray. I've used Brake Clean to clean both mating surfaces. And before I actually put the RTV on, I'm just going to fit the case top just to make sure everything is lined up. There's nothing out of place that would prevent this from going on. Obviously, it's a lot easier to find out now when everything's dry than when you've got it all gooped up with RTV. You don't need much of this stuff. Less is more. All our magnets are in, filters in, aligned. And we're going to drop her straight down, look through the holes, make sure they're lining up with the holes on the unit. And in it goes. Okay, again, 2 long bolts on the top and then all the little guys on the outside. I'm just going to hand tighten them on first. And we want to go in a crisscross pattern. There's no actual torque pattern. So just go on one side and then go kitty corner. So torque specs on these little buggers, 16 to 18 foot-pounds or 21 to 24 Newton meters. I'm going to go halfway, so I'll go about 12, and then I'll come back and do them to 22 or so. After getting everything torqued down, I like to just look all the way around the mating surfaces. I want to see just a little bit of RTV squished out the sides. Not too much, but I want to see just a tad. And this looks pretty decent. And as far as the RTV goes, you know, check your instructions for curing time. This stuff says 24 hours, but I've generally gone 12 just overnight, and I've never had a problem, but do whatever you want. Well, it's not the next day, it's 2 days later. Not because the RTV didn't set up, it's ready to go. But I just wanted to share a little Murphy's Law tale with you, a supplement to the video. Remember when I said, well, the transmission is out? It's a great time to check the transmission drive belt condition. Well, I did that the night that I was finished with this. Well, the RTV was drying, and yeah, my drive belt has got multiple cracks. It could have failed at any time. There's a doozy right there. This is the original belt. It's got 371 hours on it, so it doesn't owe me a dime. But obviously had to order a new one in. That's what the weight was. So it just came in. And let me tell you, taking that belt off is a see you next Tuesday job. You have to pull the engine pulley down to get the belt off. You have to take the 2 belt tension idlers out. One was seized into a bushing. That was fun. And the most fun part of that is you have to pull the steering shaft out. You have to take the pinion gear out and pull the steering shaft up because the shaft goes through the center of the belt. There's no way to get the belt out when the steering shaft's in place. The new transmission drive belt has been installed, so now we can finally get on to filling this rascal with oil. You want your Tuff Torq hydrostatic transmission relatively level when you're filling it, based off of this top surface here works well. Now as far as oil, do your own research, use whatever you want. I'm using what I used last time and what I could find locally easily, and that is a full synthetic 5W50 motor oil. Again, it worked great in the last fill. From the factory, this one anyway, came with conventional 10W30 installed. And since then, Tuff Torq has recommended going to a 5W50 synthetic, and they've also come out with their own Tuff Torq oil, which is based off of a 5W50 synthetic oil. I'll have some links below in the description. There's John Deere HY Guard, which is a J20C rated oil. There's also a specific 20W50 synthetic hydrostatic transmission fluid from AMSOIL. All great choices. You know, when you put your critical thinking cap on, when you read anecdotal forum posts from many different people using many different types of oil, all with equally good results, that tells me that any decent synthetic motor oil is going to work fine. I'm going with a 5W50. If you live in really hot climates, then maybe a 2050 is a better choice. I just wanted to point out in your filler neck or filler port, there's a lower port which goes to the hydrostatic chamber, so that's what will fill up first, and then when it's fully filled, it will overflow into the gear chamber here. And you want the oil about 25 millimeters, 3/4 of an inch down from the top lip here, and that will just cover this overflow lip. And you want to check that at room temperature. Here goes our first liter. Gobbled that up, no problem. Second liter. Oh, okay, so hydrostatic's full now, so it's overflowing into the gear chamber. Only took about 200 milliliters from that third bottle, and we're over the neck. But we have to prime the pump. So this is probably going to go down when we prime the pump, which involves turning the input shaft with the lever engaged in both forward and reverse. Can't remember how I spun this. I know I did it with a drill. I've got a 14 millimeter 12-point socket that fits over these splines fairly well. It's a little loose though, so I've wrapped some electrical tape around here, a couple of turns, and we'll just tap that on, plug her in, and we want to go clockwise. Okay, that's going to work. Now we have to move our arm. So I'm just going to put this pry bar in here. This is the speed arm. So we're going to go full forward first. And we want to wait till we see those shafts moving, and I suspect the oil level in the filler neck is going to drop. And the shaft is turning in the right direction. Oil's not dropping anymore. Now we'll go into reverse if I can. Yeah. Oh man, these are, there we go. Fill that chamber up, there we go. Oh yeah, oil dropped a little bit more. But not much. Just gonna measure this real quick. See where we're at. We're actually at 20 millimeters. Don't forget to put our magnet back in. And our fill cap, or drain cap, depending what you're doing. Quick little tip when you're purging out the pump and the motor and you're spinning the input shaft, watching for the output shaft to spin, make sure that neutral arm is in the right position. I was lucky, it was in the drive position, but it could easily have been in the neutral position, and I could be spinning this till Christmas and the drive shafts wouldn't be moving. Installation of the K46 is the reverse process. I'm not going to show the whole thing. Just thought I'd mention, before putting it in, I'm going to put anti-seize on all the shafts, the input, the wheel shafts, and on the mower itself, I'm going to lube all the lubrication points because they're just a lot easier to access when this thing is out. Little tip here, when working with these shafts, these keyways are knife sharp, so be careful with them. And another tip is the washers. Obviously, it's going to differ between machine, but lube the washers up on both sides, because as the wheel spins, these washers will sometimes spin against the casing or the wheel or the spacer sleeve, and it will squeak really bad. Now the moment of truth. Does it actually work? So that's a Tuff Torq K46 or T40 hydrostatic transmission oil service. As you can see, not much to it, just time consuming. And you know, every 200 hours, that seems to be a good time frame, at least with this type of machine on level ground. If you're using it harder, maybe you want to do it more. And I've still got to do a full oil change service and lube service on this machine. I'll link to it below in the description. And I've also got to do a full service on the deck. And I've got a separate video on that. I've already washed it, but I've got to sharpen the blades and lube all the pivot points. Thanks for watching, folks. And until next time, happy K46 transmission service. We'll see ya.